mix of all the two types of equations, graphing them, writing them, all wrapped up into one unique little handout. So the two types of equations that I'm going to remind you of are, hey, what's the title of the worksheet, guys? Let's use our context clues. Point slope form is one. Yay, there's a genius. What's the other one we're going to do? Slope intercept. Yay. All right. So just in case, what? I know you're probably not that devastated, but here I have plenty. I have plenty for you. All right. So we're going to zoom in on number 1. Okay. So some of these you're going to write an equation in slope intercept form, and some of these you're going to write an equation in point slope form. So question number 1, it's all based on the information that it gives you, which version makes sense. So if they gave you a slope and they gave you, okay, good, I wasn't sure if I gave you one. If I gave you a slope and I gave you a y-intercept, what makes sense? That would be slope intercept form, right? So we just reviewed this in the warm-up, so I'm not going to ask you. So y equals mx plus b. So if you are given any problems that give you the slope and the y-intercept, you are going to write it in slope-intercept form because that's what makes the most sense. So in this case, our slope, I just meant to highlight it. The slope is 4/5, and the y-intercept is 1. So you're just going to write the equation, just easy peasy. You're just going to substitute in those values. So instead of y equals m, what number am I getting ready to write instead of m? 4/5. Thank you. Make me feel good about myself. Answer me. Okay. And then instead of a plus b, what number am I getting ready to write? Plus 1. There you go. So depending on the information it gives you, point slope form doesn't really make sense for this one because it didn't give you a point. It gave you a y-intercept. So slope intercept form makes the most sense for this particular problem. Now on problem number 2, did problem number 2 give you a y-intercept? It gave us a slope, but it gave us a point. It did not give us a y-intercept. So instead of slope-intercept form, this one gave us a point and a slope. So this one's going to make the most sense to use point-slope form. Now this is the one that's longer. You've probably forgotten it. Or I don't know. Anybody a rock star and actually remember what point? Do you really? Yeah. Oh, okay. What is it?
Y minus y1 equals slope, and then in parentheses x minus x1.
Oh, ding, ding, ding. Yay. All right. So y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. Good job, Mikey. So remember that those are all y's. Yes. Okay, so remember that in your coordinate, what makes it confusing, x comes first in the coordinate, but it does not come first in the equation. So if I'm just writing the regular equation, I'm going to do y minus, but I'm going to do y minus what number? Y minus, what's my y1? 4, exactly. This one isn't much of a challenge. I realize I should have picked a different example to start with because the x and the y coordinate are the same. My bad. But instead of the m, what number am I getting ready to write instead of m? I'm getting ready to write the slope, which in this case is 1/2. Yep. And instead of x minus x1, what number am I getting ready to write for x1? Exactly, because that was what my x1 was. Okay, so part 1, you're going to write each of these as an equation, depending on what information you're given. So anyway, so part 1 for all 16 on these, you're just going to look at the information that's given to you and decide, does it make sense to write an equation in slope-intercept form, or does it make more sense to write an equation in point-slope form? Okay, so just practicing those two formats. Now, part 2, you're going to graph each of those. Graphing the first one, is exactly like the warm-up we just did. Y equals mx plus b. Where am I going to begin? What number am I going to begin on there for my, where's my b? It's a 1, right? Because it's plus 1. Okay, so then my slope, because my slope is 4 over 5, and because it's a positive 4 over 5, my two options are I can go up 4 and to the right 5, or remember that 2 negatives also makes a positive, so I could go down 4 and to the left 5. It doesn't matter. Either one is going to get you the right slope. So I'm going to go ahead from that beginning point, and I'm going to count up 4. So 1, 2, 3, 4, over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that's where my next coordinate's going to go. Make sure I counted right this time. I kept counting wrong in the last class. That's up 4 over 5, right? Yeah. I need to get my life right after not doing this for a couple weeks. Okay, now I don't have room to go up and over again, but that's okay because I can go down and to the left, and that still makes it go in a positive direction. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there I've got my 3 coordinates. Please use a ruler. Make it nice. Make it go all the way across the graph. So this is what we should have. This is problem number 1, all the way complete. Decide how you're going to write the equation. And then, depending on the information you're given, which one makes more sense, point slope or slope intercept, and then graph it. Now, we didn't spend a lot of time graphing equations that were in point slope. So this is where I want to give you like an extra heads up. Because here's what I keep seeing people do wrong. I wrote x1 there instead of 4. My bad. See, you got to tell me when I do stuff like that. Okay, so here's what a lot of people have been doing wrong. And I get why, because it is kind of confusing. So in the equation, those 4s have minuses in front of them, right? Okay, but that's what's just kind of jacked up. To be honest, aside from writing it, we don't do a lot with point slope in Algebra 1. You're going to do a lot with it next year. I kind of wish that they would just save it for next year because it's kind of confusing to use the equation because the equation really doesn't help you graph. I see a lot of people that say, oh, well, it's -4, so I need to put a coordinate like over here at -4, -4. Okay, I obviously wrote that in red because it's not right, because that's not what you do. Don't use the equation to graph it. Use the coordinate, okay? Don't use the equation. Don't use -4, because that's the opposite of the coordinate. So after you write the equation, use that coordinate. So your first coordinate is going to be at +4, +4, not at -4, -4, okay? That's always the part that bothers me about point slope. It's a little confusing, and we literally do nothing else with it after this. Yes?
So when we see the
well, for points, right, yeah, right now. Next year you need it though, which is why you need to at least have the exposure to it. And you don't even really use it for lines actually in geometry. You use it it's related to circles, which is what makes it even crazier. So yeah, for this year, honestly, not really. You just need to know how to write it. So then yes, using that slope you gave me, or using your wording, build it off the slope. Yes, so we're going to go up 1 over 2. So your next coordinate will be right there. And I do have room to go up 1 over 2 again. And so, yes, so don't use the coordinates as they're written here. It's not -4, -4. Use this coordinate that was given to you up there. So to answer Mikey's question, yes, honestly, you really don't need the equation for the point slope ones right now. But you need to get in the habit. You need to know how to write it because your life will be way easier next year when you especially if you're staying honors. Do number 3 real quick because actually number 3 is a little weird. I'm trying to help you. Okay, first of all, real quick, it gave you a point and it gave you a slope. Which one makes more sense, slope intercept or point slope? Point slope makes more sense because it gave you a point and it gave you a slope. So instead of y minus y1, I'm going to do y minus 0. I'm doing this part quick because the graphing part is the part that's a little tricky. Instead of the slope of 5 over 6, I'm going to write, instead of m, I'm going to write 5 over 6. And then instead of x minus x1, I'm going to write x minus 4. So now for the graphing part, because this one's been tripping up people on the graphing today in my other classes. So don't use -4 and 0. Use 4 and 0. So your first coordinate should be right there at 4, 0. Then with your slope, because it's a positive 5 over 6. People have been doing this wrong all day. They go up 5. So people have been going up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then they realize they don't have room to go to the right 6. So then they go to the left 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What happens with a positive and a negative? That makes it a negative. So you're right, you don't have room to go to the right, which means that instead of going up, you're going to have to go down and then to the left, because 2 negatives will make a positive. So if you go down 5 and then to the left 6, those 2 negatives will still make your line go positive. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So your next coordinate should be right there. And you don't have room to add a third coordinate for this one. So think about terms of direction. Sometimes you're not going to have room to go up, so you might have to go down and to the left, which is fine, because that still gets you 2 negatives, still makes a positive. Okay, now I'm going to show